Welcome to another, maybe the last bastardized version of the Dames Marv show. As you can see, I'm here with Major Tom. I'm here with Uncle Russ. And yes, I'm here with this broken down shell of a man from Canada, our neighbors to the north. This is our buddy Stephen J. Jackson, musician extraordinaire. How you doing, Steve?
Doing well, doing well. How you guys doing?
Good to have you
All
back
right.
on the eve of the eve of our elections, right?
Our 60th presidential election.
Really?
Wow.
Yes.
I did not know that. Anyway, I don't have an agenda today because the election is tomorrow. So that's what we're going to talk about, is just the election feelings, things that don't want to see happen, things that we think are going to happen. But I know that you've been talking a lot, Tom, about the recent polling and how things are changing and shaking out here at the last few moments. So I'm going to let you start us off with that information first. Go
Well, it's been a busy weekend, shall we say?
ahead.
Lots going on, and I think all you got to do is look at the campaigns and how they're behaving to get an idea of where things are at. A couple of what I call polling earthquakes kind of hit over the weekend, most substantial of which was the Iowa poll, which for those of us who live in Iowa, the Des Moines Register as long as I've been alive, has had what they call the Iowa poll, and they've had different companies do it over the years or help them with it over the years. Right now, it's run by a woman by the name of Ann Seltzer. And if you've been paying attention to the news at all, you will know that Saturday night, about 6 o'clock our time, the poll came out and it showed Harris with a 3 point lead over Donald Trump. First lead that she has had in Iowa, which has, Iowa for when Russ and I were kids was a deeply Republican state. Starting in the 1970s, it became more of a purple state, and we elected both Republicans and Democrats. And here since 20, and we voted, good Lord, we voted for Clinton twice, we voted for Dukakis, we voted for Obama twice, and now we've voted for Trump in the last two elections. And Republicans have kind of solidified themselves back in a position of control. This this looks like it's a change. The the significant thing about this is that uh, she is very, very highly regarded. And unlike a lot of polls, she doesn't base her sample on the electorate as it was in the previous election. She's not basing anything on the 2020 electorate. She's trying to base it on what she believes the makeup or the composition of the electorate will be in the current election. And the one thing that she has found is that, and we kind of knew this, that among women are going overwhelmingly for Harris, but an extra little thing on that demographic is women over the age of 65 are breaking for Harris in a huge way. This appears to be borne out in a lot of the early voting in many of the swing states. And probably the other thing that's come out, they're doing a lot of analysis on the early voters. There's We've got some record numbers of early voters, but about a third of the people who are voting early in this election are first time voters. So they're either people who haven't bothered to vote before, or they're young people who are voting for the very first time. And again, the demographics on that would tend to favor Harris.
Wow.
Wow.
Um, I would sure like to say that Iowa was a blue state. I would love to, or at least purple,
At least
you
purple.
know. Um, Steve, how as we get closer to our date down here, how are things intensifying in your neck of the woods?
Well, I would say that things go, and this is typical, they go very quiet in Canada because we're all waiting with bated breath to see what the result will be. Whoever's elected is going to be, it always has a huge direct effect on Canadian and American relations, right? I have seen things over the past month though where Canadians are very heated, and it's almost as divisive here as it is there. Um, just people, the rhetoric, and but I've also seen in the past few days, like just over the weekend, people are starting to calm down and say, "Hey, this is serious." So I don't
So,
know.
question for you, Steve. When you say they're heated, are they heated about politics in Canada or heated about this U.S. presidential race?
It's both. A lot of our the issues that we're seeing the U.S. brand of conservatism now. I'll use that term lightly. Has been exported to Canada. So we are seeing a different way of talking to people. We have people like in the streets where they've got a pickup truck and they've got "fuck Trudeau" like as a sign, like a flag, and
Wow.
it's not normal here.
Well, it
So
didn't used to be normal here.
Yeah, that's right. Steve, you want
uh,
to tell us a little bit about, like, I know that there's a scenario where Trudeau resigns based on our election. Can you kind of talk us through what that looks like for you guys? This,
he's getting heat to step down. He's been he's been in there, I don't know what, 8 years or something like that. And people are really giving him the heat because of the pandemic response, inflation, like all the regular things that you guys got going on as well. Um, and he's getting pressure from within his own party now, similar to Biden. It's time to step aside. So the question is, if it's like, from my perspective, if it's a Trump victory, I don't think he will step aside, at least until, the next election, which is going to be October of 2025. If Harris wins, I think he might step aside sooner. And then we'll have a leadership race and an election.
Guys,
who would assume power when he steps aside?
If he steps down, like it works a little bit differently here. So you're not electing. We don't elect our prime minister. It's elected based on the number of representatives that get elected into the House of Commons. So the short answer to that is the deputy prime minister would take over, who is Chrystia Freeland, and she's done a really remarkable job, and she's up for the uh, the liberal leadership race. We have this other guy that's coming in that I think will be the next prime minister of Canada, and that's Mark Carney. He used to be the governor of the Bank of Canada, and then we also had he was the governor of the Bank of England. So I think that's an interesting.
is he conservative or liberal?
He's liberal. He's expected to. He just announced last week, maybe the week before that, he's entering politics officially.
So, how does someone who is a Canadian, how do you get to be a member of the Bank of England?
That's a good question. Then we can get into this whole stuff, like, who's really running the show here?
Yeah. And also in Canada, isn't it a
You're
there's a
echoing real
different
bad, Tom.
okay.
So
Maybe you can hold on a second here. Is that better?
I
All
talk.
right.
I don't.
Okay. Um, if you have a resignation, that's different than a vote of no confidence.
Yeah, a vote of no non-confidence is really a piece of legislation tries to go through the House. And if the government can't carry it, it could be a confidence motion, and then that would trigger an election.
Okay.
That's different from the party leader stepping aside. So realistically, is he going to step aside before the next election? I think they'll do it in a more orderly fashion, and they'll say, okay, we're going to have the election March 1st or whatever it is, and we're going to have our election uh, within the party to elect our next leader sometime before that. I think it'll be a little. It's not going to be a gigantic, oh my God, he stepped down. Well,
I have one more
Better?
question about Canada before we get to Russ. Let's say Canadians are in for, like America becomes restless with liberal leadership and decides they want to, after 8 years, go on the conservative side. Now, everyone watching here should know that you guys are a very liberal policies country with your socialized health care and even talks of uh income, and so I'm just wondering what a change to conservative leadership in Canada would look like as far as those policies are concerned.
there would be an attack on those policies for sure. However, Canadians firmly believe in, like, we bitch about our health care, we bitch about our socialized programs, things like that, just like you guys do. And any attack on those things would actually be a big negative for the party involved in doing it. Um, what we typically see with a conservative government is they sell off our land to corporate interests, and they sell off our businesses. And that's the big concern I have. All of a sudden our steel mills aren't being owned in Canada, like things like that.
Yeah, well,
So
imagine you don't own your steel mills and then there's a tariff on steel. Ah,
Because that's what we're looking at.
you got an extra room, buddy.
I was going to say, we may
Russ,
all be moving into your basement.
so Russ, Trump's still at it at the rallies, just making up shit. Um, God, I'm trying to remember some of the things I heard him say today.
Comes right off the top of his head.
On
No filter.
complete nonsense about like the economy, like job losses, shutdown of American factories, and I'm just like, literally, none of this stuff that he's talking about is happening. Um, I mean, we're
America's a third world country. It's a third world country, which is a blatant lie. He's obviously never been to one.
I mean, what happens if he loses? Does he go away? Is this the end? Are we going to see him in 4 years again?
I don't think he's got 4 years in him.
You think he'll be dead within 4 years? Wouldn't that
Yes.
be a concern for their party? Trying to elect a guy that's not going to make it through his term?
Well, then we're looking at President Vance. And that's
I mean, a lot of people think that they're ready to invoke the 25th Amendment on him already within 6 months of being president. And you know what that we all know
Vance,
that.
I mean, he's extremely pliable, if you know what I mean. His view on things over the years has been rather fluid.
Well, here's the thing. There's a couple of good things. Well, the bad thing is he's only 40 years old. That's the bad thing. I mean, we could potentially be dealing with this bastard for 40 years. The good thing is,
But it's not the Middle Ages, he'd be dead by now.
Typically, a vice presidential candidate that runs with a loser doesn't really surfaced too much after that, historically. Now, but here's the thing. I mean, I've seen a lot of crazy stuff this cycle, so I can't think that trend would continue. I think that they found their new guy, and he's got eyeliner, and we got to deal with it. Does JD? I hate to say it this way, but does JD Vance scare any of you guys? Like, I don't mean like in an alley. I mean like for the country.
Yeah, he does me. Is that a little better on the sound?
Yeah.
Hopefully. He scares me, and I think that from this standpoint, he's a smarter version of Donald Trump.
Ugh.
And so he's going to know what to say to appeal to people. But I'm going to throw a little something else in here. If we work under the assumption that Trump is going to lose, and again, I haven't changed my opinion on this. I still don't think this is going to be close. I think she's going to win pretty handily. So what happens in the Republican Party after this happens? Because I'm with Russ. He's either going to be in jail or dead, or we'll wake up some morning and he'll be in the Kremlin after he loses here. It's going to be one of those three, maybe all three. I don't know. But there's going to be battle royal for the heart and soul of the Republican Party, and people think, well, that fight's over already. I don't think they've even started to fight yet amongst themselves, because you've had Mitch McConnell and the traditional conservatives in the Senate holding the Senate and Republicans in line. The House Republicans, they've gone all MAGA, but in the party organizations throughout the country, I think there's a sense among traditional Republicans, if we can get rid of Trump, then we're going to be able to take the party back. I'm not sure that's the case.
Dude, just look at the number of people that could take over. You've got Don Jr. I mean, you got shit. They don't care about qualifications at all. So you could have Ivanka in there. Oh, this will be the first woman, or it doesn't matter to them. What matters to them is just anything that they're being told. They don't care about. They're like, oh well, she's the daughter of a businessman. She's run businesses before. The country's a business. Makes sense. Tell us lies. Tell us lies. I mean, who? Jared Kushner. I mean,
Oh man, now there's a guy that would scare me as president.
I mean, seriously, like where does it end? Where does it end? I mean, they could feasibly put up any of these people. And then what scares me is Barron Trump, who is like 20 years away from being eligible. There, we could be dealing with these people for the next 100 years. Like,
well, and don't forget, there's an endless list of other B-list Republican congressmen and lieutenant governors out there that aspire to the throne as well. So
they're all a bunch of
there's
chicken
gonna
shit sycophants also.
there's going to be a huge fight in the Republican Party for what happens, and it's going to take them a while to get this sorted out. Remember, after the 1980 debacle for Democrats, it took 12 years for Bill Clinton to get elected president, and the only way he won the election was to run as a moderate to conservative Democrat.
yeah. So we are less than 24 hours away from getting major coverage about what's been happening during the day. And I just want to talk about what the Republican Party has been building up for the last year and a half, which is this will not be a fair election.
The big steal.
The big steal. And what that means as far as the results coming in tomorrow what are we going to have to see vote wise? And I kind of feel like the more she wins by a landslide, the more they'll accuse it of being uh illegitimate. So I kind of want to get all of your thoughts on that in the next 10 minutes. I don't care who starts, but like what are the possibilities that lie in a wait for these people that they clearly believe they're being cheated out of the election. There's no way it's going to be a fair election tomorrow. They already know that. His party has gone into this as they're going into the booths tomorrow, believing that their vote may not count because they're being cheated.
Uh,
We'll let
I'm
Russ
seeing,
go first.
I'm,
Actually, go ahead, Steve, and then Russ, and then Tom.
I was just gonna say, I'm seeing crazy stuff when you were talking about it was Iowa, right? That's the one that, and then, but there's like little inklings of Texas, like flipping the blue on the Senate race and everything like that. Like Ted Cruz might be out,
Oh,
and
that'd be great.
if that's the case, like you got to figure it's going to be a blowout for the Democrats. There's something in the wind. My gut tells me it's going to be a huge blowout. What I'm fearing is that it's going to be so close that all those election stealing lies and all that will come into full swing, and then we have violence, and that's the scary part.
Yeah. Go ahead, Russ.
Well, I haven't been paying attention to the news all day because I just have a wait and see. I'll start watching the news tomorrow night, see what happens. I'm worried also. I think Harris will win. Even if it's by a substantial margin, there's still the possibility for uprising or for violence. You know, there's going to be discontent. There's going to be accusations. We're already being flooded with accusations of fraud before it happened, you know. Kind of preconditioning people to never trust the result of any election, no matter what. And then what's the point of voting if that's the case? I hope that we'll know quickly, and I hope it's by that enough of a margin. And as far as another January 6th type uprising and response, I think the government's going to be ready, and it's not going to last very long.
All right. So, Tom, before I let you answer this, I'm going to add a layer to your these ballots, these fake ballots, wouldn't if there was a cheat about to happen, wouldn't all of the seats flip to blue in the House? Because I mean, if you're gonna cheat on one, I like how if I don't think it's gonna happen. That's what I'm telling you. I don't think that all 7 people possibilities are gonna flip to blue. But if a legitimate cheating scandal was in place, don't you think all 7 of those would flip?
Well, the thing you got to remember about any potential cheating scandal or stealing of votes is that human nature is that nobody can keep a secret. So if there is some kind of a thing in play to steal votes, it's by the time you get even 3 people involved in it, somebody's going to leak, and it's going to be out in the open.
Right.
So I think that's going to be tough. Tomorrow night, when you're watching the returns, your first 3 states that are going to come back that you should be looking at are New Hampshire, Indiana, Kentucky. Everyone says that New Hampshire's close. If Harris wins New Hampshire, if they call it really quickly, that's a very good sign for her. Kentucky is another state that there's hints that she's going to do better than expected. And if Kentucky is like too close to call fairly early in the evening, that'll be a sign that this is going to be a Harris blowout. excuse me, Georgia would probably be the next one. And if they call that for her relatively early, that's another sign. There is a new law in Georgia this year that says that all of the early votes have to be reported by the time the polls close. They got to have them counted and report them out. You can't have this. Some states like Iowa and some Pennsylvania, they wait until after all the polls are closed before they start counting the early votes. Georgia is not going to do that. And then lastly, Florida is the other early one. And if you see signs that Florida is close and that she's doing well in Florida, again, that's just to tell that it's going to be a really good night for Harris. Of course, the other way around, if they call one of these, if they call Georgia early for Trump, then we got a horse race on our hands.
Oh, all this terrifies me.
So
I don't
yeah,
wake up tomorrow. I don't really.
I got a question from the Canadian perspective to you guys then. Like, what happens? Like, if it's like we wake up Wednesday morning and Trump wins?
Well, the Dow sheds about 1,000 points right off the bat.
Yeah.
On the NYSE. The bond market goes crazy and interest rates jump about 500 basis points. And then we wait and see how many protesters end up in the streets. But he will get inaugurated and he'll be president. I will say that.
Sure.
Don't go on social media that day. I can't even imagine the amount of braggadocio there will be, and chest pounding, oorah, oorah, bullshit. These patriots.
And I agree with you, Damon. The first time he, shits his pants or stumbles at a state dinner, they're going to invoke the 25th Amendment, and J.D. Vance is going to at least be the acting president.
And then guess what we get?
Oh man,
25 Christian nationalism.
Yep.
As a nightmare.
As the government, as the law of the land. And good night, son.
That's bad. It's bad for the real Americans, and it's really equally bad. It's bad for the real Christians too.
All I'm saying is if there's a couch or a fold-away hide-a-bed in Steve's basement, I got dibs on it first.
Oh, I thought you were going to make a JD Vance. I thought you were going to make a JD Vance.
No.
My Airbnb is going to be going for gangbuster money. That's for sure. But I had a friend of mine. I had a friend of mine on Saturday night, and I'm like, "Oh, what are you guys up to tonight?" He's like, "We're watching The Handmaid's Tale."
Oh boy.
We're like, "Oh, that's what I'm going to watch tomorrow night."
Well,
at least episode 1. No, that's a terrible question, Steve. Fuck you for being on this show and asking that. You know what? I've always known that it's a possibility, but like I didn't really think about it until you said that, and I was like, "What actually would I? What would I do, Tom? What would we do? Like,
we would work within the system to make sure he doesn't get done what he wants to get done. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, there'll be possibly millions of people in the street.
Sure. That's why working within the system is always the first choice.
Right.
Sometimes working outside of the system is the only option, and
we're not there yet, though.
No, we're not. We're not. And I'm not even worried too much about friends getting mad at me. If they do, I'm not hard to find. Come on down, bring your boys, let's, but I don't anticipate it,
We got about a minute and a half left. I want to talk about like just a group of people that aren't us, but that we know. I mean, we have our fears about this, but just imagine if you were gay and you were in a marriage that may not exist in 6 months, or if you're a transgender person who's just not even accepted by half of the country, can you imagine the level of terror that these people must have in a weight of the outcome of this election?
Russ
Or
and I
it's
both
person
have,
of color, yeah.
yeah, Russ and I both have both gay and transgender close family members who could really be harmed by this. We also have family members who are not U.S. nationals, but they're family members. They've been here for a very long time, living and working legally in this country. There's a chance they're going to get rounded up and sent the hell out of here.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
saw a question to people at a Trump rally, and they're like, "Do you know? Can you guess how much money, how much taxes are paid by illegal immigrants into our?" And they're like, "Well, I guess zero." And they'll be like, "Oh, it's more like $90 billion tax money is generated from illegal aliens into our collective system."
you know
And
what happens to Medicare and Social Security if foreigners quit paying the payroll tax?
yeah,
Oh,
and they
man.
don't,
It's like it goes broke, like
and as
right
long as
away.
they're illegal, they don't get that benefit. They're paying into it
They're
with their
paying in.
tax money.
Yes.
And this is something that needs to be discussed because people don't realize. I mean, they're like every one of them was like zero. Well, zero because they're non-contributing. No, no, no. Not everyone that's illegal is being paid under the table. They're being paid with a paycheck. They're paying taxes, and that amount is $90 billion.
There you go.
They don't get the benefits, all the benefits. Some of them they do, but like Social Security,
Well, who's going to farm the food?
yeah, I don't want to have to answer any of these questions, Steve. I really don't.
I want to throw something out there. Now you got to wrap it up, but one of the things was my wife, who's Filipino, she's been dreaming of moving to the U.S. and I was like, and she's getting lured by the money that she can make in Texas, and I'm like, it's like that scene from Lethal Weapon 3, I think, but you're brown,
Yeah,
you know, and I'm like, I can't support that. Just depending, you'll end up somewhere where it just won't be cool for you, and like we don't know what's going on with this election. So
yeah, Steve. My only recommendation there is, the U.S. would love to have you, but make sure that you go down there and visit first, and make sure that she's cool down there before any of that happens.
yeah.
Thanks for joining us again, Steve. We may
Thanks
do
for
a
having me.
show Wednesday. I don't know yet. You're definitely welcome to come back and we can talk about all the stuff that we couldn't really talk about today because we didn't know. That's our time. Tom, thank you so much. Uncle Russ, as always.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Steve. See you on the flip. Go blue. That's
Go
all
blue.
I got.